Welcome back to the Bro Show, BroThrow's official NFL and college football picks show. I'm Jake alongside Chad. We're going to give you our best bets for now into the first weekend of November in the National Football League and NCAA. Chad, we saw some big news take place this past week with Anthony Richardson being now benched by the Colts for Joe Flacco. He said he was tired in that one play. Turns out you're tired of playing. This is the first game we're going to talk about. What do you see in the Sunday night game now with this big storyline happening in NFL?
Well, I mean, just first of all, for Anthony Richardson fans out there, I happen to be one of them, hoping he gets to play eventually. But it's such a short leash on these young NFL quarterbacks that come in. They start immediately, and then if they don't perform, I mean, Bryce Young's another example. Just kind of disappointing to see. I would like to see him come back. For the purposes of this week, though, I'm taking a look at the Colts. 7-1 against the spread this season, which is great, and the Vikings are 5-2 against the spread, which is not bad. The Vikings started off the season white hot 5-0, and they were kind of considered a powerhouse. But I keep kind of hearing some whispers, and I'm starting to sense the same thing: is that the Vikings may be just a little bit on the fraudulent side. Kind of taking a look back over the last few weeks. I do think that the return of TJ Hawkinson is going to open up the passing game a little bit for Sam Darnold. I mean, he's a huge weapon. Anybody who plays fantasy football knows that TJ Hawkinson is an excellent tight end. He makes the game easier for his quarterbacks and his wide receivers. And he just happens to have the best wide receiver, in my opinion, in the NFL, and Justin Jefferson. But I think 5.5 is going to be a little bit too much, So a couple things I liked about the Colts this week. Number one, Joe Flacco, Mr. Completion Percentage. Mr. Veteran, Mr. MVP, Mr. NFL Super Bowl champion. He's getting the start, and it sounds like he's going to be the starter for the rest of the season. So that's going to give him a little bit of confidence moving forward. And then the second thing is Jonathan Taylor. I mentioned Justin Jefferson, maybe one of the, if not the best, one of the best for sure, wide receivers in the NFL. I think Jonathan Taylor is right up there as well as far as football IQ, ability on the field, tough runner. Catches passes, but he returned last week. He looked awesome. He looks to be completely healthy. If we look back at this season, the Colts beat a much more difficult Steelers defense, and the same thing with the Bears. They beat the Bears, and the Bears have one of the best defenses in the NFL. So, narrowly lost to the Texans twice. So I think 5.5 is just gonna be way too many, and I think that the Vikings are on a little bit of a downslide.
Yeah, it seems like quarterbacks are getting pushed aside younger and younger now these days. And I wonder if it's because, it seemed like with Seattle, when they got Russell Wilson, everyone's like, this is the best way to build a team. You find a good quarterback on their rookie contract, and then because they're not being paid a lot, you can surround them with high-priced defenders and wide receivers and offensive linemen. And it worked for the Seahawks, and everyone said, we got to try this. But I just don't think it's that easy that, you just find a young quarterback like Russell Wilson, because I think, it turned out that Russ was a lot better than people were giving him credit for, because he was a third-round pick and short, and people weren't expecting all that much. So I feel like the Colts are being maybe a little bit unfair with Richardson, but I don't necessarily think they're benching him due to his performance. I honestly think it's because he kind of lost the locker room when he admitted that, he had to take himself out of the game because he was tired. Like, you're tired, bro. Yeah. What about all your offensive linemen who are blocking and taking hits every single play for you? And you ran around a little behind the line of scrimmage. What about your receivers who are running streaks down the field, full sprint every single play? You had to make a statement after that. So I feel for the guy. I think he's going to get another chance. I don't know if it's with the Colts or not. That might be a tough one to move on from. But I do like the Colts in this game. I agree with you here. The Vikings have the number 3 worst rated rush defense in the NFL. So they're the number 3 worst rated pass defense in the NFL. Right. So Flacco coming in, he's going to be able to open up that pass game. Josh Downs is a really solid receiver that Flacco has a great connection with. And in his, 3 games that he played so far this season, the Colts went 2-1, and the one they lost was only by 3 points. I think he's good enough to keep him competitive. He's a veteran. He's still elite. I agree with you on the Colts at -5.5. Sorry, +5.5. All right, moving on to the next game. Sticking in the NFC North, Lions taking on the Packers. -3 here for the Lions. And that's who I'm riding with. I'm just a complete believer in this team. They have the best offensive line, in my opinion, in the NFL, and they have an amazing 1-2 combination in the rush game. Packers have a good run defense, but they're also dealing with an injury of their own in Jordan Love at quarterback. He probably will play, but I don't think he's going to be at 100%. And when you have a physical team like the Lions, if you make any mistakes as the other team turning the ball over, if Malik Willis will do so. I mean, he's played pretty well as the backup, but Lions are very well coached. They have a great run game, and Goff doesn't really make mistakes anymore. I think I saw that they have more touchdowns in the last 2 games than incompletions. This is just a team that's firing on all cylinders. I don't really care that it's on the road. I think they're probably the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, so I'm going to ride them here at what seems to be a little bit of a short -3 if Jordan Love is in fact out.
It's an interesting pick. I think that this one's one of those. It's a little bit too close, and this is such a huge division matchup. To me, the NFC North is the closest division in NFL, and I don't think it's close. Yes, I know the NFL or the NFC West has 3 teams at 4-4, but every team in the NFC North has a better record than 4-4. The Bears are 4-3, and everybody else has 5-6 wins. So every team in this division is either good or very good related to or relative to the rest of the NFL. Just looking at the matchup, you got a white hot 6-1 Detroit squad led by probably the most likable coach in the NFL. Everyone's cheering for him. I got a guy in my Cowboys chat who works for a politician in Michigan, and he's wearing Lions jerseys now. So pretty funny. But everyone's seems to be behind Detroit. And, they beat up on the Titans. They beat up on the Cowboys. And they beat the Vikings 31-29, in another NFC North matchup. But you also have the 6-2 Packers, who led the NFC North in both passing and rushing so far this year. So when you're talking about the 2 different plays in football, you've got your passing, you've got your rushing. They are better than the Lions. They had recent wins, other good recent wins as well against the Texans and the Cardinals, who are kind of an underdog. Everyone keeps betting against them. They keep beating teams they shouldn't beat. So those are kind of impressive wins to me. And the Packers lost to the Vikings 29-31, which I think is pretty cool. 31-29-21 or 29-31 between these 2 teams and the Vikings. So that's an interesting thing to look at. It just kind of, I think, plays more to the fact that this North division is so strong. But the Lions are at the bottom in rush defense, which happens to be something that the Packers offense is very strong at. Josh Jacobs, and the backfield that they have when Josh Jacobs is out or he's resting. So if Jordan Love is healthy this game and he, quote, got pretty good news from his groin MRI, I think it's leaning to where he's likely to play. No, he's not going to be 100%, but he's a great pocket passer, and I think that I'm actually going to lean with the Packers and take the points at home.
I definitely agree the line is intimating that Love is playing, because I think if he were out, this would be closer to like a 6 or 7 point game. But if you want to agree with me on the Lions or fade me with the Packers like Chad is doing, go to brothrow.com/YouTube to sign up today to get access for free to take bets on any of your favorite games, NFL, NBA, college football, college basketball returns next week as well. So no better time to get on BroThrow and start placing your action today. Chad, let's move on to the final NFL game we're going to talk about for this video. Rams heading up north to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. 2-point line here in favor of the Rams. What you got?
I just feel like this is probably a bounce back week for the Seahawks after getting somewhat embarrassed by the Bills at home last week. I mentioned earlier, the NFC West is basically gridlocked with the top 3 teams all sitting at 4-4. It's going to be a great matchup, and I think the basic idea for me is Seattle's they're not going to lose a second game in a row at home, especially against a division rival. Both teams have their stars healthy. We saw last week what Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are able to do to elevate Matt Stafford, who's still, like we mentioned, as far as elite quarterbacks go, Matt Stafford still has one of the best arms in the NFL. He's able to throw the ball in every slot. He's brilliant on the field and showed up and beat the Vikings last week when most of the money was on the Vikings. So I just think, like I said, I think this is going to be one of those where they're going to have to get up and they're going to have to play good. They're going to have to win at home if they want to have a shot in this division. And it seems to me like I'm a points at home guy this week, but I'm going to continue the trend, take the Seahawks.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting spot. The Rams, as you said, they got Nacua and cut back last week and looked really, really good, beating Minnesota by 10 points. I don't know if anyone really saw that big of a victory coming, especially from Nacua, who the coach had said, he's like 25%. He's only going to be out there a little bit, and he was looking 100%. I mean, he was out there run blocking, for goodness sake. Definitely a lesson to be learned in the gambling world. Coaches never tell you the truth. Literally, whatever they say, you can just assume it's going to be the opposite. But because the Rams looked so good and seemed to be healthy again, I feel like the public is going to be very heavy on them this week, especially at only -2. Realistically speaking, that's only got to win the game for them. So, the Seahawks lost DK Metcalf last week. I don't know if he's going to be back this week, but I feel like even if he's still out, they're going to have more of a set game plan to get Kenneth Walker involved. The Rams' run defense is really not that good, all things considered, bottom 10 in the NFL. So I think the Seahawks are going to try to control the ball a little bit more, keep Matthew Stafford, Kupp, Nakua, Kieran Williams on the sideline. And the fewer possessions of the game, the more it favors the underdog. So I kind of agree with you on the Seahawks +2 here.
Jake, just while you were talking, I looked up real quick. Looks like DCap's trending to play, or DK Metcalf rather, trending to play. He's questionable. It looks like he's going to play. And Geno Smith, let's just remind everybody, right now is the current NFL passing leader. So all signs lead to Seahawks.
All right, let's move on to the college football portion of the show. A massive, massive game out in Happy Valley, Ohio State, taking on Penn State. And kind of a surprising line, in my opinion, at Penn State +3.5. Ohio State has looked very vulnerable this year, especially to the top teams. I mean, they went out and played Oregon and lost by 1 point, even if they ended up getting that field goal, which they seem to believe that Will Howard was down with a second to go. Even if they get that and win by 2, that's still not enough to cover a -3.5 on the road. And then last week, they took on Nebraska and looked very, very mortal in that game, barely winning. And honestly, Ohio State should have probably lost that game. If Nebraska had, a couple extra plays here and there, maybe one more throw when they had guys open, that would have been enough to change a 4-point victory. So coming off back-to-back kind of tough performances, I'm a little bit struggling to see why we're supposed to take them -3.5 against Penn State. Penn State has been looking very, very good as of recent. They went to USC and should have lost that game. And they ended up pulling out the victory. A very, very important thing when you're a top team is, hey, we know that everybody's going to give us their best shot. This is one of the biggest games on the roster. So being able to win when you're losing the entire game, I give them a lot of credit for that. They lost Drew Aller last week. He got injured, but I think that he is going to be back for this game. Even if he's not, I do like how the backup Bo Prabula played. And it's, Penn State is a team that's focused on the run game and defense anyways. So if their quarterback's out, they're going to try to, shorten the game, limit possessions, do all the classic thing a underdog does. And with an over-under of only 45 points, the books are not expecting this to be a high-scoring game. So give me Penn State +3.5 at home. They're getting points with a raucous crowd behind them. College game days there should be very, very hyped. And if Aller plays, then even more the better for us. I'll take the points here in the spot.
Yeah, you mentioned the over under. I also think that kind of suggests that Penn State's going to have a lean here, just because, like you mentioned, their run game, their defense is going to favor them in that over under. Now, if it was a high over, I'd probably reconsider that. But we look back at Ohio State, I don't think they have one single impressive win on their schedule. If you think back to our preseason Heisman Future episode, one of my picks was Will Howard. Now, Will Howard's had a pretty decent season with a line of 17.95. 17-4, but he's 42nd in passing yards this season. Nowhere near the top where he needs to be to even be in contention for the Heisman Trophy. Honestly, I think this is kind of emblematic of this Ohio State team. Just high hopes and not enough dominance. You'd think they'd come in this year after having a solid year last year, and really dominate teams. And it's just kind of lackluster, it seems. You got Penn State 7-0, like you mentioned, has a little bit more of an impressive track record recently. They beat USC, they beat Wisconsin, and they beat Illinois in Week 4. And like we mentioned, Illinois is really impressed this year. So I find that to be an impressive win. Obviously, they're ranked. And the fact that the number 3 team is getting points at home is odd to me. But I'm not going to get too cute. I really do think Penn State is probably going to win this game. And so I'm going to roll with you on Penn State.
Yeah, I think the money line is definitely worth a sprinkle as well at that +160 number. All right, sticking in the Big Ten, we move on to another matchup here. Illinois at home, taking on Minnesota, +3 here for the Illini. What you seeing in this game?
The 6-2 Illini took a beating last week against the 8-0 Oregon Ducks. But Oregon's looked pretty great. You've watched the games, you've seen their schedule, and take a look back. We just mentioned Ohio State. They beat the number 2 team in the nation, and they've looked pretty good. So I'm not going to put too much stock in last week for Illinois. I think they'll be fired up this week. They're back at home. They're getting points against the Big Ten opponent in Minnesota, which I think is going to be big here. And you've got Luke Altmaier. He's only thrown 3 interceptions for the season, and 2 of them were last week. So I think that this offense has done a great job of protecting the ball. And as much as I hate to say it, I think Brett Bielema has done a pretty good job with this program, probably better than, all around that he did with Arkansas, -1 season. So good for him, good for Illinois. And if Illinois can avoid turnovers in this game, I'm definitely I like the points at home.
Yeah, this line just makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, Illinois has 2 losses on the year, at Oregon and at Penn State. Those are the current 1 and 3 ranked teams in the country. So why are they getting points at home to a very average Minnesota team? Yes, they had a very close call against Purdue, but I'm not really going to hold that too much against them. They went out and beat Michigan pretty handily. They beat Kansas. I know Kansas hasn't necessarily been as strong as we thought they were going to be this season, but you can only play who's put out in front of you. And I think Illinois has looked very, very good at doing so. Minnesota, they got kind of destroyed by Iowa. They lost to Michigan, who hasn't had a quarterback all season long. Yes, they had a good win against USC, where USC kind of choked in their run defense. Illinois' run defense is a lot stronger than USC here. So this is a spot where kind of everything points to Illinois. And you got to say, well, why is the spread the way it is? That's the only thing that points me towards Minnesota. So I kind of agree with you. I think Illinois' got to be the play here. Then moving on to the last game we're going to talk about for this video, Indiana taking on Michigan State, -7.5 for IU. Now, Indiana is my alma mater. They're the team that I root for the most, and I've picked them several times on this show. And every single time I've picked them, it has resulted in a W on the spread. They are not only 8-0 on the season, but they are 8-0 against the spread. This is a team that has one of the most efficient offenses, not just in college football, but in the last 20 years of college football. They're saying that, if you look at the advanced numbers, you could compare this team to the LSU squad with Burrow, Chase, Jefferson, to the Bama team with, Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, all these top, Jerry Jeudy, all these top guys. This is what the Indiana team is like, and we're going to continue to prove it week after week. Michigan State, they're an up-and-coming squad. I like Jonathan Smith as the head coach. I like Aiden Childs as the quarterback, but they just went out and lost by 7 to a Michigan team that has no quarterback. That was a game that they should have been very intensely motivated for. Now they have to come in, and they're probably going to be very daunted by the Hoosiers coming to town. Curtis Rourke is likely to be back, the starting quarterback for Indiana. They were firing on all cylinders with him. They looked fine without him, still scoring 31 points, including getting an epic pick 6 against Washington. I think Washington's a better team than Michigan State personally, and Indiana won by 14. They have not trailed for a single second this year. They also have one of the highest rated defenses in the country, if you weren't convinced by all the offensive metrics they have. So I'm just going to continue to ride them until they prove us wrong. They're a cash cow. We've won every single week on them. If you look at my stats in my BroThrow membership, I'm 15-0 betting on them this season because I put out multiple slips for them every single game. I just have to continue to ride with my boys. It's all in Hoosiers all the time.
Apparently, I mean, comparing this team to the Burrow National Championship LSU team is some hot piss, Jake. But let me tell you, I don't have much to add. They are a great squad. They're coached well. They play well. They show up. And, good teams win, great teams cover, right? So not much to add. We've said it for weeks now. Indiana's a wagon, and I'm going to bet them every week with you until they prove me otherwise.
Well, if you think that you can have a hotter take than that, leave a comment in the comment section below, and whoever has the hottest take this week, we will send you a free BroThrow hat. Yes, you can get your very own BroThrow merchandise for absolutely free. So leave a comment below. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Bro Show. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Chad, anything you want to leave the viewers with before we end this one?
We had a good week last week. At least I did. Finally had a winning week, and
it would have been better. It would have been better had my Bears not given up a Hail Mary to screw the Bears spread.
What a play.
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. Don't even want to talk about it. Oh.
Man, hey, look, you think it's bad for you. I'm a Cowboys fan. We're going to have to deal with Daniels for the next 15 years. So, but what a play. What a game. Hey, who's number? Is it 26, 29? Who's number 29?
29, Stevenson. And then the funny part was I was watching that game with my brother, and the entire game we were complaining about Stevenson's play at cornerback. He was getting shredded by McLaurin. If you go look at the box score, Jalen Johnson, our number one corner, had 2 tackles all game. Why? Because they weren't throwing the ball to him. They were fading Stevenson, who led the team in tackles. Why? Because he was getting torched all game long, and then to do that, like, the GM is a nicer man than I, because I would have cut him already. They have not cut him.
He's got to be cut.
He apologized to the team, and that is secured his spot.
Whew. Okay. Well, that one hurt.
Yeah.
That was a big swing.
That was a big swing. But anyways, we appreciate you guys all for tuning in. Head to brothrow.com/YouTube to sign up now and leave a comment for a chance to win your free merch. We'll see you all in the next one. Peace.